modern America first saw light on a Hollywood screen. It was largely the product of 6 movie studios established in the 1920s and run for over 30 years by a group of Jewish immigrants. They had strikingly similar backgrounds.
All races and religions, that's America to me.
All of these men who founded Hollywood were born within a 500-mile radius of one another. And all of them wound up roughly within 15 miles of one another in Los Angeles. One could say that the American dream was really born in Eastern Europe.
Here we are. This is the Warner Studio.
Gee, I've never been so thrilled in all my life.
Harry Warner, who with 3 of his brothers brought sound to the motion picture, was born in Poland.
I was Jack Warner, youngest of the Warner clan, and then the senior member of the film-famed brothers.
Also from Poland was Samuel Goldwyn, born Goldfish. Although Goldwyn never ran a major studio, he was perhaps the biggest and best known of the independent Hollywood producers. Universal founder Carl Laemmle came from a small town in Germany. Louis B. Mayer, who gave us the glory years of the MGM studio, was born in a Russian Jewish village. William Fox and Paramount's Adolf Zucker were both born in Hungary. Fox's studio merged with 20th Century Pictures to form 20th Century Fox.
David Walk Griffith was born in 1875 and died in 1948. He was an American film director. Considered one of the most influential figures in the history of motion picture, he pioneered many aspects of film editing and expanded the art of the narrative film. Griffith is known to modern audiences primarily for directing the film Birth of a Nation. The film led to riots in several major cities all over the United States. Griffith made his next film, Intolerance, as an answer to critics who he felt had unfairly maligned his work.
The original The Birth of a Nation, a silent movie, came out in 1915. It's an adaptation of the Thomas Dixon Jr. novel, The Klansman, an historical romance of the Ku Klux Klan, about the relationship between 2 families in the American Civil War and Reconstruction era. It was directed by D.W. Griffith, one of the best-known filmmakers of the period, often referred to as the father of film technique. Griffith produced and directed the first movie ever made in Hollywood, called In Old California, and went on to found United Artists in 1920, alongside Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, and Charlie Chaplin, who called Griffith the teacher of us all.
D.W. Griffith, basically regarded as one of the most prolific and innovative filmmakers of all time, in 1915 created a film that was the most racist film, not only of its time, but to date, outside of Goebbels' films against the Poles in World War II. When this film made it to the theaters, KKK's enrollment, rose to over 4 million. At the end of such screenings, they would take to the streets and they would lynch the black people that they saw.
However, in 1862, General Ulysses S. Grant expelled all Jews from his war zone on flimsy accusations of war profiteering, despite the fact that Grant's own father worked with Jewish businessmen. Luckily, Lincoln interceded, saying he did not like to hear a class or nationality condemned on account of a few sinners. Grant would later disavow the order and become the first president to attend the dedication of a synagogue.
I wrote the Jewish Confederates because when I wrote a book about Charleston, I was really surprised that the Jewish community was so ardent for the Confederacy. You really don't associate the Jews with the Confederacy. But in fact, the truth is hundreds of thousands of Jews, well, not hundreds of thousands, but 150 50,000 Jews came to America in the 1840s. And they were German, they spoke German, they were mostly immigrants. And 25,000 came to the South. Not a lot, very small number of people, but they were mostly in Charleston, Savannah, New Orleans, Richmond. They were merchants, they were peddlers, they worked in saloons. I mean, they really were not well-to-do people. They were new immigrants. And they were, I think, surprised by the fact that they were so accepted, that people allowed them to conduct business, they could vote, they were treated as equals, they could open their houses of worship. And so, you know, when the war came, they were just like regular Southerners. I think the story is really a non-story. In other words, they were here, they got caught up in the excitement of secession, all the reasons why Southerners went to war. And they enlisted and they fought. And so, you know, you find them everywhere. You find them in the infantry, you find them in even a few in the cavalry, you find them in the artillery. No, but you find them spread out just like, really the whole story is they were just like everyone else. But they were, for the most part, immigrants. They did, a lot of them speak German. And so they tended to associate with each other, with other German speakers. But they really tried to assimilate. You find the Irish, for example, had their own brigades and regiments. The Germans did too, but the Jews really tried to spread out and fit in. And so, you know, they felt they were fighting for their country, for their state. They went to war for the same reasons other white Southerners went to war. But they also went to war for a special reason. I mean, Jews were thought of as people who were not loyal to the country they lived in. There was discrimination, there was prejudice, and they wanted to show that they would fight, and they would stand up and be counted as citizens and as men. And while it's not politically correct today to be identified with the Confederacy, the truth is these men were fighting for reasons that people generally fight, out of patriotism, loyalty, a sense of duty. And so they did fight. And you know, some of them even achieved a high rank. On the cover of my book is Adolph Proskow, who's a colonel of the Alabama 12th. So they were accepted generally by the Confederates. And I think this is a story that wasn't told and that people find a little hard to believe. I mean, when my book came out, you know, New York Magazine said, you know, what were they thinking? And but what they were thinking just like other white Southerners. Whether good, bad, or however you feel about it, that's what they did.
When we look at a file and we find evidence that they were Jewish, that's a great thing. And it looks like this is the certificate of the decease of Moses Schloss. And in this case, it says Palmer Vault at Mount Sinai. And Jewish cemeteries are often called Mount Sinai, so that gives us a good clue. Nothing says proof of Jewish like a marriage certificate written in Hebrew. And for descendants, this is going to be really great to look and see their ancestors' marriage certificate. If we can get families and descendants involved to share the material that they have, the Chappelle Foundation will be in a position to help them care for their objects. Most people don't have the ability to care for these documents themselves, and if they knew that there was a place that it could be, included with other documents and materials that spoke to this time and these people.
One of the leading figures of our time is dead. Bernard Baruch, whose favorite office in later years was a park bench, was a quiet philanthropist who gave away the millions he accumulated as a financier and Wall Street broker.
Bernard Baruch was a giant of the first half of the 20th century. Born in 1870 in Camden, South Carolina, Bernard Baruch was one of 4 sons of Simon Baruch, a Jewish German immigrant, and Isabel Wolf Baruch. Isabel was from a wealthy Jewish family who had been living in South Carolina since the 17th century.
By the year 1800, shortly after the American Revolution, Charleston, South Carolina had the largest population of Jews of anywhere in North America.
Simon Baruch studied medicine at the South Carolina Medical College in Charleston and the Medical College of Virginia. He finished his studies a year after the start of the Civil War and enlisted as a Confederate Army surgeon. In 1880, the Baruchs moved from South Carolina to New York City. There, Bernard Baruch graduated from the College of the City of New York. As an alumnus, he made a substantial gift to his alma mater, and eventually it came to be called Baruch College.
The Baruchs. The power of this family was based on business and politics. Bernard Baruch was the patriarch who began the history of the family. He was a financier, shareholder, statesman, American political advisor of Jewish origin, broker, and partner of A.A. Houseman & Company. With his income and commissions, he bought a position in the New York Stock Exchange for the value of $434,000. By age 30, he had already amassed a great fortune by speculating in the sugar market. In 1903, Baruch had his own brokerage firm, and because he chose not to join any financial house, he earned the reputation of the Lone Wolf of Wall Street and became one of the most recognized financiers. After his success in business, he excelled in the field of politics. He advised U.S. Presidents Woodrow Wilson and Franklin D. Roosevelt on economic matters. It is also known that he was a close friend of Sir Winston Churchill. Baruch College of the City University of New York and Saratoga Racecourse Bernard Baruch Handicap were named in his honor. When dying, his properties were under the administration of his wife Annie and their children Belle, Renee, and Bernard Baruch Jr. The Pritzker. If you've ever stayed at a luxury hotel or an elegant 5-star resort, you may have been inside the Pritzker domains. This family of Jewish immigrants from Ukraine moved from Kiev to Chicago in 1881. The Pritzkers owned the Hyatt Corporation, a multinational with luxury hotels and resorts, which would total 777 establishments in 54 countries. The family owns the A.N. Pritzker School, which is focused on fine arts and performing arts, as well as its own architecture prize. This award, which bears the name of the family, seeks to encourage and stimulate greater public awareness and inspire more creativity. The Pritzkers have also participated in the Superior Bank of Chicago, the TransUnion Credit Agency, the Braniff Airlines, McCall's Magazine, and the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. His influence on politics was noted in 2016 as they were one of the biggest contributors to the Clinton campaign. They have also been known for their support of educational, scientific, medical, and cultural activities.
Star of David, where does that symbol come from?
It's never written explicitly in the Bible itself.
Is it in the Talmud? Perhaps. Is there a passage in the Bible about that or no?
No.
Okay. So you're not really sure exactly where that comes from?
No. You got me.
Is it nobody knows,
Yeah,
huh?
I don't know. I'm not, yeah.
Because I know it's called the Star of David.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with David?
No, I don't think so.
There must be somewhere. I do not remember exactly what the association was.
Okay.
You get back to the Masonic fraternity of Freemasonry.
Yeah.
Their great symbol is G. You'll look at the star on the compass, which is a stylized Star of David. In fact, they have the entire Star of David in many Masonic temples. Why is that? Masonry is a study of the Kabbalah. Albert Pike said in his book, Morals and Dogma, that the Kabbalah is the very basis. Without the Kabbalah, we would not have the 33 rituals of the Masonic Lodge. But the god they worship, the great architect, is Moloch, God, star god, called Remphan or Kiyun. All these were names for Moloch.
Ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. And the star of your god Remphan, but ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and Chayun your images, the star of your god which ye made to yourselves, and Chayun your images, the star of your god, and Chayun your images, the star of your god, and Chayun your images, the star of your god.
And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. They are not Jews, and their claiming to be Jews is blasphemy. But you claim to have a covenant relationship with the God of righteousness. I say you're a so-called Jew. You are Satan masquerading as a covenanted people of God. You must be exposed regardless to the consequences. The synagogue of Satan is not just composed of so-called Jews. It's composed of people of like minds that are under their influence.
Unique about the monument honoring Albert Pike. The general is holding a book in his hand. It's called Morals and Dogma. The book, written by Pike, is considered to be the Bible of the Scottish Rite Freemasons. Only those men who obtained the highest degree in Masonry were awarded this secret book. In Morals and Dogma, General Pike revealed the mysterious origins of the Freemasons, and he revealed a tightly guarded secret concerning the source of all wisdom in all religions. What follows are the actual quotes found inside the book, in the hand of Brigadier General Albert Pike, in a monument that stands in Washington, D.C., 13 blocks from the White House. Masonry is a search after light. That search leads us directly back to the Kabbalah. All Masonic associations owe Kabbalah their secrets and their symbols. One is filled with admiration on penetrating into the sanctuary of the Kabbalah, at seeing a doctrine so logical, so simple, and at the same time, so absolute. The Zohar, the key of the holy books, opens up all the depths and lights, all of the obscurities of the ancient mythologies and of the sciences. All religions have issued from Kabbalah and returned to it. Regarding the true origins of Christianity, Pike wrote, Paul studied Kabbalah at the feet of Gamaliel, the rabbi. Here is the origin of the Trinity, of the Father, the Mother, or Holy Spirit, and the Son. Christ himself recognized it as a truth that all Scripture had an inner and outer meaning. on the hidden meaning of the rose. The mystical meanings of the rose as a symbol are to be looked for in the Kabbalistic commentaries. On the mystery of revelation on Mount Sinai, the primary tradition of the single revelation has been preserved under the name of the Kabbalah. On the origins of the wisdom of Pythagoras, Pythagoras visited all the sanctuaries of the world. He went into Judea, where he procured himself to be circumcised, that he might be admitted to the secrets of the Kabbalah, which the prophets Ezekiel and Daniel communicated to him. The purpose of the Templars, according to Pike, was to acquire enough wealth and power to establish Kabbalah throughout the world. In the headquarters of the southern jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite in Washington, D.C., there's a bronze bust of Brigadier General Albert Pike. Above it is a quote from General Pike, which conveys the essence of Kabbalistic teachings. What we have done for ourselves alone dies with us. What we have done for others and the world remains and is immortal.
The god Baphomet. This is the god that the Templars were supposed to have been worshiping when they came back from the Crusades, and the Pope and Philip le Bel condemned Jacques de Molay, who was the head of the Templars at that point in time, and they scattered to Portugal and Scotland. Of course, resurfaced later as the organization of Freemasonry. But again, this is the god of Freemasonry. Now, how would you like to be the wife of a Mason and suddenly come to realize what your husband is into? And he has taken an oath, hasn't he? He's not going to tell you what he's into. Now, what I like to do when I can, I like to read the occult's own books. And I have a book here called The Evolution of Freemasonry, written by a Freemason, published by McCoy Publishing Company, which is a Masonic publishing company. Some of you will really enjoy this. I just toss it in here because I thought it was interesting. It's in this book on page 89. There's a picture of Martin Luther, and it says, Martin Luther opened the way for the future development of Freemasonry. In the book, 10,000 Freemasons, 10,000 Famous Freemasons, written by a Freemason, there is an individual who was a cohort of Martin Luther who was himself a Freemason. And so, was Luther himself a Mason? I don't know.
The white man pays Reverend Martin Luther King, subsidizes Reverend Martin Luther King, so that Reverend Martin Luther King can continue to teach the Negroes to be defenseless. That's what you mean by nonviolent. Be defenseless. Be defenseless in the face of one of the most cruel beasts that has ever taken the people into captivity. That's this American white man. And following the ignorant Negro preachers, we have thought that it was godlike to turn the other cheek to the brute that was brutalizing us. And every other person on this earth has God-given rights, natural rights, civil rights, any kind of rights that you can think of. When it comes to defending himself, black people should have the right to defend ourselves also.
White Nazi, not in Germany, right here in New York City, up there burning cross, had a carload of guns ready to come at you like they came at the Jews over in Germany. And when they caught those Nazis, they found that one of them was a Jew. And that Jew running around here talking about Nazis, and some of them are nothing but Nazis themselves. You didn't hear them blow that up in the newspaper, did you? No, they tried to quiet it down. Why, when you found Jews who are Nazis, you really found something. In fact, I think you can find a whole lot of them who are Nazis. Always running around here trying to make you get sympathetic for them. And some of them blue-eyed Jews are going to walk away from here and say that I'm saying something anti-Semitic, anti-hell.
On more than one occasion, Levy's provocateur antics nearly exposed the ADL's hand in fomenting domestic violence, ladies and gentlemen, and here's the truth of how these people operate, and here's the truth of anti-Semitism in America, and here's the truth of swastikas painted on synagogues and on the headstones in Jewish cemeteries. On February the 16th, 1979, Levy, using the pseudonym James Gutman, filed an application with the United States Park Service in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to obtain permission to hold a rally. Now remember, this is Levy, using the pseudonym James Gutman, a German name. I wonder why he did that. Well, you're going to find out. The rally permit, ladies and gentlemen, sought by Levy, a member of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, supposedly existing for the protection of Jews. The rally permit sought by Levy, a member of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, supposedly existing for the protection of Jews. The rally permit sought by Levy, also known as Gutman on this occasion, was not filed in the name of the JDL, which he was also a member of. Levy was posing as a leader of the American Nazi Party. Levy was posing as a leader of the American Nazi Party, seeking a permit for a Ku Klux Klan and Nazi Party rally at Independence Hall, the site of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Remember, I told you about the Hegelian method of political conflict resolution? Remember, I told you there's no such thing as a patriot community? Remember, I told you that these people who are bringing about the New World Order control both sides of every issue. Indeed, they create the issues. According to the rally permit, Levy was planning a white power rally to show white masses unity of white race and to show the world niggers and Jews are cowards. Among the paraphernalia Levy listed on the application were swastikas, banners, Nazi uniforms, KKK paraphernalia, Will Burn Cross, swastika picket signs saying Hitler was right, gas commie Jews. Verbatim quote. Working out of the Philadelphia offices of the Jewish Defense League, Levy organized local chapters of the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, and neo-Nazi groups to attend the Independence Hall rally. And these racist fools, not knowing that he was a Jewish member of the ADL and the JDL, fell right into line and did his bidding. Like the little puppet jerks that they are. In the case of the Trenton, New Jersey Ku Klux Klan, Levy had an inside track. Listen to this. James Rosenberg, also known as Jimmy Mitchell and Jimmy Anderson, a full-time paid employee of the Anti-Defamation League Fact-Finding Division, had successfully infiltrated the local chapter of the Klan. Rosenberg had recently attempted unsuccessfully to get some of the local KKKers to blow up the Trenton headquarters of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP.
What's interesting is that the Jewish community, they've controlled entertainment, they've controlled Hollywood, they've controlled art images and what other ethnic groups think of themselves, but they try to absolve themselves of it, and what they'll do is they'll go, oh, this is all toxic white males doing this.
And raised up in Strong Island, so you know I know all about my peeps, my niggas in the ghetto. I designed and own Timmy Hilniger 125% authentic ghetto activewear.
Hilniger keeps it real. Timmy's got all the latest gear.
If you want to keep it really real, never get out of the ghetto, stay broke, and continue to add to my multi-billion-dollar corporation, keep buying all my gear. The Timmy Hilniger collection.
I like this. You guys have both seen the overnight ratings. They're through the roof. Mazel tov. But in this business, we have to be 1, 2, 3 steps ahead.
All right, I'm in Jerusalem at the Machane Yehuda market. I'm looking for the apartheid.
That's why I brought in Myrna Goldfarb. She's the best media consultant in the biz. She's gonna help us out.
Okay, in Israel, I am looking for the apartheid. I just asked all these people, not one person is able to tell me where the apartheid is. So I'm asking you on this platform, since you're so smart, to tell me where I can go to actually witness the apartheid. You guys know where the apartheid is? No idea. No one knows where the apartheid is, but I'm sure you can tell me. Let me know where the apartheid in Israel is.
Okay, first of all, I would like to say I love your show. It's very courageous. You know, my parents marched in Selma, Alabama with Dr. King.
Why are you here?
Good question. Straight to the point. I like your style. Because of the content of the show, we're going to expect some very spirited reactions.
Myrna's here just to plan our strategy, just in case.
All right. The best defense is offense.
Really, I thought it was the other way around.
Exactly. Okay, I think we're on the same page. Now, I've mapped out some strategies that are going to help bolster our position.
Which is?
Lighten up, man, right? This is about fun, right? Nice, wholesome fun.
Hey, Myrna, break it down for them.
Okay, the Mantan Manifesto. Catchy, ain't it?
So is syphilis.
Number 1, we gainfully employ African Americans in front of and behind the camera. You gotta cover yourselves, people, very important. I'm talking, I need a black grip, a black gaffer, a black PA, have them there. Number 2, let the audience decide. 3, who put these critics in charge anyway, right?
Right.
These so-called cultural police. 4, who determines what is black?
Yeah, what is black?
Yes, okay? Sleep and Eat and Mantan are lazy and unemployed, but we are certainly not saying anything about the entire African-American community. They're slackers.
Slackers?
I took a couple of years after graduate school and walked around the European countryside. It's not the biggest deal in the world. Okay, wear kente cloth. Invoke the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King. You know, use the word community often when talking about Mantan. And finally, our biggest asset is you, Pierre Delacroix.
Me?
Yes, you.
Me?
Yes, you.
How?
Well, you see, this show was created and conceived by you, right? A non-threatening African-American male.
Hey guys, if you want to watch more clips, click here.
And if you want to watch the full podcast, click right here.